You just want to be 1% better every day. Strongly disagree with that. The way that we show up for ourselves is going to be different every single day, and it depends on your capacity for that day. Sometimes it's just shifting our language. I want to look after myself. You say, no, I am someone who looks after myself. Then you start to behave in that way, and that behavior then becomes habitual, and those habits become your lifestyle. And then it fulfills the identity.
If someone listening right now is thinking, yeah, that's all well and good, but they might have an identity of, I'm addicted to food, what would be some things in going, okay, this is how you could pattern interrupt?
We will create habits much quicker if the thing that we're trying to create gives us dopamine. And the cycle of overeating, especially ultra palatable foods, trains the brain to seek out the same dopamine hit again and again. It's really channeling in and going, okay, what's my body trying to tell me? And then giving it what it actually needs.
What would you say to those people that feel like they're quote unquote doing everything, but if they misstep, it's sort of like if they misstep, it's out of fear?
Oh my gosh. I mean, this is the thing that I've worked on in myself, and it's been the biggest game changer for my sense of well-being. It
is so frustrating. I feel like I'm training so hard. I'm working out. I am looking after myself, but the weight is not shifting.
I just don't know what the to do anymore.
Is it my hormones? Should I be avoiding HIIT exercise?
No matter how much I try, I can't stop eating chocolate.
For so many women, weight becomes a battle, a number, a judgment, a story we never chose but somehow inherited. But what if weight isn't the problem? What if it's a message, a signal from a body trying to communicate? Not the noise we're constantly fed. Keto, fasting, Ozempic, hormones, cortisol, genetics, shame, but real information. Without blame, without fear. That is the question that led us to create our Weight and Metabolism series, exploring weight through an unbiased approach combining medical, functional, and energetic understanding. We sit down with leading experts and real women to reframe how we understand weight, health, and the bodies we live in, giving you clarity, context, and a way forward. This is What's My Body Telling Me, the podcast where we let the body do the talking and we listen differently. Welcome back to our Weight and Metabolism series. If you've ever wondered why you keep repeating the same eating patterns, why cravings hit even when you're being good, or why weight feels so hard to shift, today's episode is for you. Because I'm joined by Dr. Gina Cleo. She's a world-renowned habits expert, registered dietitian, and PhD researcher. And together, we unpack the energetic forces driving your weight and metabolism, from things like dopamine loops, identity patterns, stress, emotional load, and the energetic imprints running beneath your habits. And there's one thing I want you to remember as you listen to this episode. Your weight is not a personal failure. It's not proof that you're broken. In fact, your weight is a message. It's the intelligent symptom that is telling you that your current system that your life is running on is resulting in this excess weight. So, in this episode, you'll learn the exact habit interruptions that work, how to break identity loops like I'm a chocoholic, and the small, compassionate tweaks that completely change your metabolic and weight patterns. All right, let's dive into it with Dr. Gina Cleo. Dr. Gina Cleo, thank you so much for joining us on the What's My Body Telling Us podcast, where we talk about the weight and metabolism. So I wanted to start today by asking you, for the woman that is listening to this, that has tried everything, from your perspective, what is the biggest misunderstanding about habits and motivation when it comes to her weight and metabolism?
I think the biggest misunderstanding is that motivation comes before action, when it's actually the opposite. Motivation is a byproduct of taking action, even tiny actions. I think women often think, if I could just feel motivated again, I'd get back on track. But the science shows that the brain releases dopamine not when we've achieved a goal, but when we're making progress towards it. So the moment that you take a small step, whether it's a walk, a nourishing meal, a glass of water, your brain rewards you, and that creates motivation. So it's not a personality flaw, it's just biology. It's how our brain works.
Wow. So I'm curious, when you're talking about dopamine, because a lot of people at the moment are talking about ADHD and addiction and like food addictions and things. How does that play a role in, I guess, like dopamine seeking behaviors, and how we might be able to use that to our advantage if we're wanting to create new habits?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we will create habits much quicker if the thing that we're trying to create gives us dopamine. And that's why we often find that it's much easier to create unwanted habits than it is some of the ones that we want to keep. So things like phone scrolling, watching too much TV, smoking, drinking, it's really easy to fall into these habits and to make them part of our lives because all those things give us dopamine. And so the other way that we could do it is to find joy in the simple things that are better for us. For me, for example, I love making like raw desserts and little bliss balls, and I get really excited about making them, but also about eating them. And so although I'm eating really healthy, I'm still getting a hit of dopamine from having those things. And that has been like a little hack that I use just in that one little area. And I can do that with anything, whether it's movement or going to bed early. It's just finding joy and a little like hit of excitement in those healthy habits that we're creating.
So it's the joy and the excitement around whatever the behavior is that creates the dopamine.
Yeah, it's the anticipation of it. It's the wanting to do it. You can't ever really develop a strong habit if it's something that you dread doing, that you don't want to do, that doesn't give you that little zing or sparkle. It becomes really hard to make that a habit because it's hard to be sustainable. It's hard to be consistent with something like that.
So how would that, if there was a woman that you were sitting next to, say for instance, you and I actually just chatting at breakfast at a cafe, and we happen to be sitting next to another bunch of women, and one of them's like, this year's my year. I finally feel motivated. Yep, I'm going to crack the code. And they're someone that's sort of been through yo-yo dieting, yo-yo cycles. They feel motivated and they get disheartened. They feel motivated, then they just get disheartened. What would be the thing where you'd be like, oh, she's definitely, like, she's cracked the code, like the habit's going to change? Or what would be the thing that's the pitfall and you're like, oh, she might fall back into that cycle?
I think some of the pitfalls with someone like that would be all or nothing mindsets, trying to overhaul everything at once or expecting like unrealistic expectations, assuming that results should just happen quickly or now they're going to have more energy, more motivation, more time. And that's really not reality. Relying on motivation, which naturally fluctuates, or using restrictive strategies, things that, will work short term, but tend to always backfire long term. Some of the things that make change stick this time is starting really, really small, much smaller than she thinks, focusing on identity, saying things like, I am someone who looks after myself rather than the outcome. And one of the really important things that I think is often missed is designing an environment so that healthy choices become the easy choice. It's the most convenient thing. There aren't barriers to making that choice. That's when behavior becomes automatic instead of effortful.
So it's almost, I love that, changing your identity. That just made me think of, the movie Shallow Hal?
Yes.
Like how like Tony Robbins, he's in the elevator and he's like changes like how he perceives other people, like sort of on an identity level. And now this overweight person looks like Gwyneth Paltrow, which is not what I'm saying by any means in this sense, but I think it's really interesting. I know in ways that I've shifted in other parts of my life, whether it's weight, whether it's money, whether it's business, whether it's relationships, whether it's anything. What I've found as well is that profound shift that happens when you shift your identity around it. So is there any ways that can help people do that? Like, how would you suggest someone go about that?
Sometimes it's just shifting our language. Instead of saying, I want to look after myself, you say, no, I am someone who looks after myself. It's this idea that our behavior will often follow our sense of identity. So if you're saying, I am someone who does this, then you start to behave in that way. And that behavior then becomes habitual and those habits become your lifestyle. And then it fulfills the identity because, I can say I'm someone who's active and it's my lifestyle. It's my identity. It embodies such a big part of who I am. It's a really strong value for me. I hold it in every part of the essence of who I am, because it is such a strong identity for me. And that also means that I don't have to have it look in a conventional way. I'm someone who's active. And if I'm traveling, for example, like I'm going overseas tomorrow, that can look like I'm walking around the airport instead of sitting down. It can be I am choosing to do things while I'm traveling that are active rather than not. It doesn't have to be I'm someone who goes to the gym all the time. It's just I'm just an active person. And so I'm active all the time, every day, no matter where I am.
I love that. So how does this tie into I was reading up about you before this episode, obviously, and I found you've done some research into people that have lost weight and how they keep it off, whether they do or whether they don't. And there's some interventions that you used. Can you explain a little bit more about that and what you found, what works and what doesn't work in the research?
Yeah. So my study, I really came into this world of habit research, I guess, through my own struggles with maintaining healthy habits and maintaining a healthy weight. And I worked as a dietitian for years. And what I saw over and over and in myself and in my clients was that people didn't, fall off the wagon because they lack knowledge. They often fell off the wagon because they couldn't sustain the behaviors long enough to see real change. It wasn't a willpower problem. It was very often a habit problem. So I really wanted to understand why it is that we do the things that we do. Why does behavior change feel so hard? And more importantly, what actually works long term? So the study that I implemented, I ran a few studies, but I think the main one that you're talking about is I split the group into 3. We had a control group, and then we had a creating new habits group and a breaking old habits group. And the creating new habits group, we gave them 10 things that research showed were helpful for losing weight and maintaining that weight. And some of them were harder than others, but it was things like, getting in more steps, drinking plenty of water, checking in with their hunger, just like really basic. Nothing was quite profound in the 10 little things that we asked them to do. But the idea was to do as many as they can and to tick off when they'd done it. And we gave them sort of some like habit building tips. Then the breaking old habits group, this was the fascinating one. We gave these guys a random text message on a random day at a random time to do a very random thing. And it was something like walk or like drive to work a different way, or call a long lost friend, or write a short story, or volunteer at your local community center. Like nothing to do with diet and exercise or weight whatsoever. And what we found is after 12 weeks, both of the groups had lost the same amount of weight. It was about 3.5 kilograms. And interestingly, then maintained that weight loss and actually lost a little bit more when we followed them up a year later. Now, in weight loss studies, that's pretty much unheard of, where most people will start to regain the weight as soon as their diet or their 12-week program is finished. So I wanted to do some interviews with these guys to be like, what in the world happened? The creating new habits group, they were like, well, I've kept doing the habits because it's now part of my lifestyle. It's part of who I am. So that made sense. The breaking old habits group, though, what we found with them is that when you give someone something random to do, it interrupts the habit flow of the day and it increases mindfulness. And that's when you get to make a choice of, do I actually feel like the coffee and croissant for breakfast that I normally have at work? Or am I not even hungry right now? So much of our habits or many of our habits are driven by our environment. So we might eat lunch at midday, not necessarily because we're hungry, but because of the time of day. We might eat similar amounts of food, not because that's what our body needs, but that's what we're used to seeing on our plate. We do so many things completely out of habit and autopilot. So when somebody does something different, you interrupt the web of habits and then you bring in mindfulness. And that was the real power of doing something different.
Wow. That's fascinating. And I love that the interrupt was something completely not even related to weight or dieting or lifestyle at all. It just goes to show that, I guess, is that really that mindfulness piece is pivotal in changing the identity? Like, was that helping someone change their identity, or was more so the break in changing their environment piece, which helps them?
I would say it's the breaking their environment. It's breaking the chain. So habits often work in a web where one habit feeds off another. If you think of when you make a cup of tea, for example, you might just think of it as I'm making a cup of tea. But what your brain is doing is there are 1,000 little micro habits that you're doing to make that cup of tea. You would open the cupboard with a particular hand. You'd grab a mug with a particular hand. Then you might close the cupboard and then you turn around and grab a tea bag and then you place that in your mug and then you turn the kettle on. Like there's a sequence of events that happen to make a cup of tea. And it's the same with our day-to-day habits. Driving the same way to work, parking in the same spot, eating the same breakfast, eating at the same time. It happens in this sequence, in this flow. And so when you interrupt one of those things, the flow of it is then interrupted. And that's when you can bring in mindfulness and the change in our environment.
It's sort of like thinking of it like a recipe. So if you skip a step in the recipe or you change a step in the recipe, the cake or whatever you're making is going to be completely different at the end of it.
Such a good way of saying it. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
That is fascinating. So if someone listening right now is thinking, yeah, that's all well and good, but I'm addicted to food. Like they might have an identity of I'm addicted to food, or food gives me a sense of calm, or maybe they don't even realize why they're eating food. They just are unconsciously doing it. And now they've sort of started to realize it. What would be some things where you could help support them in going, okay, this is how you could pattern interrupt as a first beginning?
Yeah. I would get them to map their habits. So map out when you are eating, I want to bring in all the mindfulness. What's your hunger on a scale of 1 to 10? How are you feeling in that moment? Who are you around? Where are you? What time of day is it? What have you just done beforehand? I would ask all these things to try to identify patterns in someone's life and then bring mindfulness into those moments and then eventually really preempt that it's happening. So let's say afternoons, 3 p.m. is a really common downfall for people. It's that sort of like afternoon slump. It's just before you've picked up the kids from school or whatever it is, or you've just picked them up and now you're overstimulated and you're going to need a snack. So it's identifying, it's going, okay, 3 o'clock today, it's going to be a challenging time for me. So I'm going to have these prepackaged snacks that I'm happy to eat, or I'm going to check in with my hunger and actually see if I am hungry. Maybe I'll have a cup of tea instead. It's replacing the habit that we've been doing on autopilot with something that we would like to do instead. The preemption is everything, but the way to get there is through mindfulness first.
And I like how you said replace it with something that you like to do, because then it's still giving you the dopamine. If we circle back to at the start, is that why you do it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Something that you know will make you feel better, and it's still going to have like huge like ups and downs in your energy or your blood sugar levels or whatever it might be. Yeah.
It's interesting because with this podcast and sort of the paradigm of how I look at the body and how we're trying to help people view their body differently, is that whatever the symptom, it could be quote unquote food addiction. It could be more weight that you seem to yo-yo back and forth. It could be acne. It could be a headache. It could be anything like that. It's not a problem. It's actually your body working exactly how it was designed to, given the environment that you're in, given your identity that you have, given all the inputs that you have. It's like, well, that's the exact right output that your body should be giving you, given everything else. So would you say that, like, if someone has, say, a food addiction, it's not necessarily that you are broken, that this is you. It's actually just a manifestation of all of these parts. Like, what environment are you in? Are you stressed? What's triggering it? Is it because you've just picked up the kids and you're overstimulated? Is it because of past things that have happened and that's like the thing that you use to give you dopamine and that's just the thing that's now rewarding? Would you say that's accurate, or would you tweak that in any way?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. What we often find is that people are feeling a dopamine dysregulation. It's habitual cravings, often feeling like there's a loss of control around certain foods. And the cycle of, overeating, especially ultra palatable foods, trains the brain to seek out the same dopamine hit again and again, which feels like an addiction, although it isn't considered a formal clinical addiction. But rather than saying or asking, am I addicted or why am I addicted? It's actually looking at what need is this meeting right now? How can I break the cycle with small swaps and new habits? It's really channeling in and going, okay, what's my body trying to tell me? And then giving it what it actually needs. And oftentimes it's connection. It's, sometimes it's magnesium. Sometimes it's hydration. Sometimes it's rest. Sometimes it's a distraction or a moment of joy. And we can certainly find those in much healthier ways than eating when we're not hungry or eating foods that aren't supporting our nourishment.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that's always the question I ask myself is like, what is my body actually trying to tell me? Yesterday, because a lot of people, when I say this, some people are devil's advocate. They're like, well, my body was telling me it wanted KFC. It's like, well, wasn't that your body or was that marketing and advertising and your brain and all the thoughts? Because yesterday I actually, for some reason, KFC, I'm saying this as an example, KFC keeps coming out as an ad on my algorithm.
Oh, yeah.
And I was playing golf with my mum and doing other things. I'm like, oh, I'm really craving like these $6 for 6 tenders or whatever. And I'm like, why am I craving this? Actually, I'm not, because I know if I eat that, I'm going to feel terrible afterwards. And my body's not going to actually feel nourished, as opposed to this morning when I woke up and think, what do I want for breakfast? I'm like, my body doesn't feel like anything heavy. It just really wants some fruit, something light. Even though I normally have something that has more protein and it's balanced and all the things, like actually it doesn't want that. It just wants something really light. And I felt great afterwards. So I think that's would you add anything to that? Like the nuance of when you do ask your body, particularly when it comes to food, how do people know it's like, oh, well, it is my body. It wanted this chocolate, or it is my body. It wanted this like food. Is there anything you'd add to that?
Oh, it's so interesting because, like take the KFC example. What is it in the KFC that your body could possibly be craving? Like putting your mind and dopamine aside, there is nothing nutritional in that food. It is not going to support your cells or your body in any way. And, I'm not discounting, yes, of course, there's protein and blah, blah, blah in it, but we can, we would, if we were actually craving protein, we'd be craving it from something that's a lot more available and digestible, and it wouldn't have all the other things with it, right? And so that that's actually your mind, your dopamine craving the KFC. And it would be the same with any other food. I know that I often get like sugar cravings when I'm really tired. I haven't had a good night's sleep, or I'm fatigued for whatever reason. And I'm like, okay, yes, I'm craving sugar because my body does want a quick hit of energy. But what I actually need is a nap. I just need to go have a nap. I don't need to have some chocolate right now. And so I think it's probably like digging deeper. Like, why does it want the chocolate? Why does it want the KFC? What's it going to get out of that? And it's a quick microsecond of a question that you ask yourself, but it makes such a difference in how you then act on the craving.
A quick pause before we continue. If you're listening to this episode, chances are you're trying to make sense of a symptom, whether that's weight, fatigue, PMS, brain fog, hair shedding, acne, or period pain. Maybe you've run the tests, being told everything looks normal while nothing actually feels normal. I want you to hear this clearly. Your symptoms are real, and your body is communicating, and you don't actually have to figure this out alone. After decades of trying to find answers for my patients and myself and studying across the various fields of healthcare, I created the Fundamentals Framework, because the healthcare system hasn't had a space for women who feel stuck between symptoms and answers, and I wanted to fix that by giving you clarity and a way forward without being dismissed, overwhelmed, or disconnected from your body. Inside our clinic, you work one-on-one with a registered healthcare practitioner trained in this method, complete science-backed functional testing that looks beyond bloods, and build a personalized roadmap based on your body, not trends and not bias. Not to fix you, but to understand you. If you're ready to stop guessing and start listening differently to your body, you can book a free clarity call via the link in our show notes. Appointments open early 2026. All right, let's get back into the episode. So it seems like with this, people need to be able to have, as you said, that quick microsecond, that ability to not just go straight into the behavior subconsciously, and it's just the habits are stacking, interrupting that flow, changing the recipe around, as you say. So how does, if someone is compulsively eating and they are stressed, burnt out, emotional load, how does that impact their habits?
Oh, yeah. I mean, stress changes everything. Our hormones, our appetite signals, our decision making, our impulse control. Like when someone's overwhelmed or stressed, they often shift from making intentional choices to being in the survival mode. And that's when we see emotional eating, carb craving, skipping meals or overeating, skipping workouts, mindless snacking, the I'll start tomorrow kind of thinking. And, you know, it's not because they're weak. That's not at all it. It's because the brain is prioritizing relief over long-term goals. And it does that when we're stressed. It needs that like short-term relief is going to be the priority because that's survival. So we design habits that work with stress, especially with a stressed nervous system, not against it. And that can be little things like starting small, having accountability, doing a workout that you actually really like. And that might be at home because getting to the gym might be a bit of a mission, or having foods that you do really enjoy that aren't very restrictive. Having these little things makes a really big difference, especially to the survival mode brain.
So it's not necessarily that if you're thinking, oh, I'm stressed, so now I have to set aside 2 hours to meditate. But the whole time of that 2 hours, I'm thinking, now I don't have enough time to do all the other things, so it's more stressful.
Yeah, definitely not. And it's being so, so kind to yourself. I know that a lot of people say, like, you just want to be 1% better every day. I strongly disagree with that. I think the way that we show up for ourselves is going to be different every single day, and it depends on your capacity for that day. I went through a really traumatic event a few years ago, and the Gina that I was the day before this event and the Gina that I was the day of and after that event is an entirely different person. My capacity before that event, I was, running 2 global companies. I was the head of student well-being at a university. I was training 5 days a week. Like I was at the top of my game. And then the day this traumatic event happened, I developed agoraphobia, which is the fear of leaving your own home. And the idea of even getting to the gym or getting to my office was so overwhelming. I was completely debilitated at the idea of even going out to my letterbox, let alone, going grocery shopping by myself or doing all these other things. And it wasn't until I let go of the expectation to be like I was yesterday that I was finally able to move forward and to allow my brain to come home to itself, basically, and to create neuroplasticity and to recreate my life again. Tiny little baby steps. And some days it was just brushing my teeth. That was the goal. That's all I needed to do. And other days it was, I'm going to try to get to the gym today or go to the grocery store or cook myself a meal. It wasn't 1% better every day. It was today I'm going to show up for myself and I'm going to do that every day with the capacity that I have to do so.
I love that. So what role does shame and compassion have with that then? I'm thinking, because again, like I was scrolling on my phone this morning and I saw someone that I'm following and he had a shirt that said 1% better every day on the shirt. So it's hilarious that you're using that example. And it's interesting because a lot of the times if I'm just thinking, and I'm generalizing here, but most people that I hear say that are men in general, and we do know that women do cycle and they do change, but also I don't think it's fair to put pressure on a man or a woman or anyone to get better 1% every day. As you're saying, it's up to capacity. So if someone is in that state or they're thinking that, oh my gosh, like they have that sort of health discipline where it's like, well, I didn't make it to the gym today and I'm a person that makes it to the gym every day. So that means then I'm terrible and I'm not healthy. And like we can be so ingrained with our identity that we sort of shame spiral if we allow for some flexibility in our life. So
Yeah.
what would you say to those people that feel like they're quote unquote doing everything, But if they misstep, it's sort of like if they misstep, it's out of fear, really, that they're doing everything. What would you say to that?
Oh my gosh. I mean, this is the thing that I've worked on in myself for the last couple of years, and it's been the biggest game changer for my sense of well-being. It's self-compassion. Oh, it's just everything. I used to be such a chronic all or nothing thinker. It's like I had to stick to this gym program. I had to eat, well all the time and get to bed on time and blah, blah, blah. But life happens. Life does life. And this week, for example, I am really busy with work. It's a really busy time of year. I'm going overseas tomorrow, so I've really had to cram a few things in. I haven't had as much capacity to do a proper gym workout. Like, yes, I've been active every day, but it's looked different. Old Gina would be like, you're mentally busy, not physically busy. So why is it that you can't do this workout? But Gina now is like, because energy output is energy output. And I know that if I train really hard at the gym, I have less to give to all the things that I absolutely need to get done today. And so I'm being kind to myself. And it's never let me down. Honestly, it has always made me feel better about myself. I'm more consistent as a result because I don't think, oh, if I can't give it my all, I'm not going to go. I'm going to go and I'll probably give it 15 minutes, half an hour. It doesn't matter. But I'm still going to show up. And that's all I need to do. And it's interesting because the brain doesn't need us to do the whole habit for it to be a habit. It just needs us to start. And that's what I think of as well is you just need to start the thing that you said that you would do. Whether, if you said that you're going to do some movement and you just put your shoes on and you walk outside the house and you come back in, you've still started and initiated that. And so it still embeds in your neural pathways this time of day or at this time, this is when I move my body. And so you can maintain that habit even though if you haven't done it. And so it's not a step backwards at all. It's still a step forward. It just looks a little bit different today. And that's totally fine. We're human.
I just wanted to jump in here quickly and remind you of something. If you are listening to this episode and thinking, where do I start? What's happening? I just am always this person that has been trying to lose weight and nothing's happening. I'm just an overweight person. I have no willpower, XYZ different beliefs that are happening. I want you to know that your symptoms are exactly what they need to be. There's actually nothing wrong with them. This is where we say your body isn't the problem, it's the solution. Now, why I say that is because your symptoms are a result of how your system is working. It's like a result of a recipe. If I give you a recipe to a cake and you follow it to the T, you follow all the measurements, you follow all the method in order, you heat the oven perfectly, that external environment is great, you are going to get a cake. You're going to get a delicious cake. However, if I change one of the ingredients, if I change around the order, if the external environment, the oven is too hot or too cold, the recipe changes. The output of that recipe changes. So we can apply this to anything in our life, particularly right now, what we want to do is apply it to our weight and metabolism. So if you are someone that is getting the end result of, I just can't lose weight no matter how hard I try, that is exactly what's meant to be happening given the current system or recipe that is going on in your life. Now, we need to look at what is in the recipe. So this is often where we go, well, it's all just calories in, calories out. It's all just about how much of the ingredients are in it. Is that actually the case when you bake a cake? I know for me, I'm not a baker. If anyone's watched any of my stories, I tried to make a focaccia and it was miserable, right? So we know that, yes, you could get the measurements exactly right. But what happens if the oven temperature is skew-if? What happens if you stuffed up the order? What happens if you forgot about it and left it in for too long? So it is too reductive to think about, oh, it's just calories in and calories out. We need to look at the whole picture, the whole system. And that is exactly what Dr. Gina and I are talking about in this episode. So you are someone that has just changed the measurements, but you're not looking at, oh, okay, well, maybe I need to pattern interrupt or I need to change the order that I'm putting these ingredients in. For instance, you might put the kids to bed and then you notice that you sit on the couch, you scroll on your phone and you have chocolate when you're doing that. And that's a habit that you get into. This is where we can change around the order. So maybe we put the kids to bed and then we decide to get a cup of tea, or we take 3 deep breaths, or we swap it with something that is enjoyable, and then the output changes. So it is not that you lack willpower. It is not that you are broken. It is not that you are destined to be like this. It is simply that your recipe needs support. It needs tweaking. So this is where we stop, we pause, and we ask our body what it is that it's trying to tell us. And let me tell you, it's not telling you that you're broken. It's not telling you that you are lazy. It is telling you the exact opposite. And how I know that is because you are listening to this right now. Back to the episode. Yeah, I think that's the thing that a lot of us forget. It's like you're not a robot. You can't just expect that every day you're going to be the same. And also, if every day was the same, I don't know about you, but I would be bored. I'd be so bored.
100%. Yes, so bored.
Give me something else. Add in a different variable. Like, let's spice some things up a bit. Yeah, that's really, really fascinating. And I think it's, when you're saying that, I know a lot of people that I work with, and obviously I've experienced it in different ways too, when you go to begin a habit and you're doing it, you might see whether there's other people in your life that are doing it, or someone on social media, or somewhere that you see that you're perceiving that they're doing it better, or that they're ahead.
Yeah.
Like, you've got that comparison that comes in. What would you say to people when you're noticing it, that's the comparison? Like, you might be like, oh yes, okay, I'm doing the best I can, and I'm human, and I'm starting that habit, and it's great. And then they might get that voice of comparison creep in. What would you say is a antidote that they might be able to try for that?
You know, for every single one of us, I don't care how successful you are or what your highlight reel looks like, it is not a matter of if you fall off the wagon. It's a matter of when. Every single person is going to fall off the wagon at some stage, because the process of creating new habits, it's not linear. It's very much a process of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And that person that you're watching, like, live their best life, they've had their setbacks, or if not yet, they're about to, like, watch the space. But it's the people who succeed aren't the ones that, you know, have got it all together. There's no such person. It's actually the person who gets up and does so quickly after a setback, rather than sit in this spiral of shame. So the trick is just to get up from a setback rather than try to not have setbacks. That it's not realistic.
And that often paralyzes us in whatever aspect is going on in our life. It could be that we're wanting to, say, go to the gym, or maybe just go for a walk around the block, or maybe just put on our runners, maybe just go buy some runners. Whatever it is, wherever you are, it's that you just take the action. And even if you, like, I didn't put on my runners the next day afterwards, it's like, it's okay, you can do it tomorrow. Like,
Exactly.
it's not having that. Yeah, I really like that, not having the judgment, I suppose. And exactly what you said, it's coming from that self-compassion instead of judgment.
Yeah, that's it. Self-criticism never ever leads to positive outcomes.
Which circles back to exactly what you said at the start, where if you're going to start a new habit, do so in a way that feels good to you in some way. Create feel good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's sort of like, I'd like to tell people sometimes, if you're confused or you don't know what to do, just think of yourself like a toddler. So it's like, if a toddler wasn't doing, like, you're not going to ridicule a toddler and be like, oh, and like judge them and not be compassionate and all the things. Like, they're not going to want to come near you. Like, they're not going to like that. But if you're really lovely and compassionate and you're giving them the cool things, like, oh, they're fed nourishing foods, they're not high on sugar all the time, and be around a toddler that's on sugar, they're not going to be behaving very well. They're probably not going to be wanting to sleep. But yeah, it's getting those fundamental things like sleeping, nourishing yourself, eating foods that are actually really good for your body, being around people that you love, often can be some of the things that, by the sounds of things, really help also with habits, like being like that foundation to, it's easier to then start and continue habits as well.
Yeah, totally. And actually, in my book, I talk about this idea in terms of setbacks. I say, you know, when a child learns to walk, they're going to have many falls and tumbles. And that doesn't stop us from celebrating the times that they do take a first step. Like when they take a first step, we don't expect them to then go running or to take lots of successful first steps. There's going to be many falls and many tumbles. And we don't go, oh, they failed. It's like, no, but this is part of the process. They're actually still getting up and trying again. And this is exactly how we should look at our own lives when we're changing our habits. It's the falls and tumbles will happen. They're part of the process. They're part of the tango of change. And it's actually how we see them and how we view them instead of being self-critical, but actually being self-compassionate and understanding that it's part of the process. That's when we can keep going and do so sustainably rather than seeing yourself as, I'm just not someone who can create new habits. I'm just someone who keeps failing. I don't have enough self-discipline. It's like, no, those tumbles are part of the process. It's okay.
And not necessarily like, berating yourself if like you've fallen down many times again. And then you become the person, like that identity is like, I'm just a person that is addicted to food, or I'm just a person that's a chocoholic, or I'm just a person that's, because that's, I guess, on that identity level. So what would you say are the top, I guess, or the reoccurring common beliefs that you would see around people that have been in that cyclical yo-yoing diet or trying things and their habits just aren't sort of sticking, I guess, and they keep falling off? But what would you say are the beliefs that that person has about themselves, and where could they pivot and change them that could make a really big difference?
It's that I just can't do it. It's all or nothing thinking. It's unrealistic expectations. It's goals that are too big or having too many goals at once. It's relying on motivation. It's being too restrictive. And the belief in ourselves is that I'm not enough. I don't have enough self-discipline. I'm not motivated. I'm lazy. It's all these little things. And shifting that is just the subtle shifts. It's I don't need to overhaul everything at once. And my habits will change because I didn't wake up. I wasn't born with these habits. I created them. And I can also change them because our brains are wonderfully malleable throughout our entire life. They are constantly creating new neural pathways, and nobody's any different. We can all create new habits and break old habits. And knowing that the fluctuations are normal and natural and it's part of the process. And so it's really just the positive self-talk and the self-compassion and a radical self-acceptance that helps us to get over ourselves. We're not robots. It's okay. It's okay to not be perfect. In fact, it's normal to not be perfect.
So you're saying that there's no genetic reason why someone could never form a new habit?
No, there isn't. I mean, I'm sure there's obviously mental health implications, and I'm sure there's some things like Parkinson's, for example, where dopamine is impacted. It makes it absolutely more challenging. But no, our brains are designed to be malleable. They're designed to be rewiring constantly. And the only reason we still have the habits we have yesterday is because we continue to do the things we did yesterday. It's not because we can't break those habits.
So, number one, break the habits or change it with a habit that brings you joy, essentially.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. I'm excited to start creating some new habits. Watch out, world. Okay, so to summarize, if you were to say to a woman right now, the one that's sitting next to us at the coffee shop, that's saying, yes, I'm motivated, all good. If you could give her a blueprint, like here's the top tips, this is what I'd recommend, and she's going to be more than likely successful. To summarize, what would you tell that woman?
I would say make it so small that it's hard to say no to doing it, that first step. Attach what it is that you're wanting to do with something that you already do. So like a cue could be like brushing your teeth and flossing your teeth, for example. Repeat it consistently as often as you can, and make sure you tick off every time you've done it. So on a habit tracker, and make it rewarding. Make sure it's a feel good. The best reward isn't buying yourself a new outfit or booking a massage. Those things actually kind of don't really work. The best reward are emotional rewards. They're the ones where you notice what you've done and you go, well done, you did it. Like this morning, oh my goodness, I did not feel like going to the gym. It is super hot outside. I have got so much to do. And I went anyway because I had the class booked in. And after the class, I was like, well done, you. You really didn't want to go and you did. And I feel so good for it. And it's that moment that actually rewires our brain in terms of reinforcing our positive habits. So take a moment to feel proud of yourself.
I love that. Dr. Gina, thank you so much for joining us and helping us understand that energetic aspect to why we might still be struggling with our weight and metabolism. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, Dr. Anthea. I've loved chatting to you.
Thanks for listening to our Weight and Metabolism series. It's designed to help you understand that your weight is a message from your body, not a character flaw. If something in this series resonated with you, let us know in the comments below. Check out the show notes for important follow-up information and links, and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss what's coming next. Please remember, this episode is for educational purposes only. Always consult a qualified health practitioner before making any medical decisions. Every body is different, and so is every healing journey.